have trouble saying that word. Maybe others have had that experience too. When someone dies, we say things like, well, they passed away, they crossed over, they transitioned. We have all these different words because death, he died, or you're going to die, just seems, or it can, maybe others don't have that experience, but it can seem pretty intense. And it's sort of like the elephant in the room. We often don't want to talk about it. We don't want to acknowledge it. Nancy, your story, where'd Nancy go?
She left.
Oh, well, that was amazing. I mean, what a gift to have her mother be so open and kind of leading the way into that. It's not always that way, certainly. And death can be something that it is something we all experience. We're all going to experience the death of loved ones. Many of us already have. And we're all going to die at some point. So it's really unavoidable. And the more skillfully we can experience what happens around the death of someone, particularly someone we love very deeply, it is very important for living. Death is part of life, and the more skillful we are, the more open we may become, and the more full our life may become, actually. No one welcomes it, but it's a fact, and it may be used as a wonderful catalyst for deepening our love, opening our heart, building wisdom about what is life and how am I to live in this life. Ram Dass says in an article that he wrote about learning to grieve, he says, as we get older, it's important to learn how to grieve. And he says, seems like that would be obvious, but it's not. He says, Western culture teaches us to be stoic, to move forward, to get on with it. Time is of the essence, and there's not much toleration for slowness or melancholy or grieving. And he says, grieving is a healthy, necessary aspect of life, and it's too often overlooked. And as we age, the losses mount, and he speaks not only about the loss of life, of a loved one, but also losses in terms of our own health and physical abilities. So the losses mount, and we must embrace them completely if we are to live with open hearts. We must take time to remember our losses rather than closing ourselves off to the grief. And he goes on to say that grieving is a spiral. It's not sort of a step 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, now I'm done. It's a spiral, and we need to be patient with it. And everyone grieves differently. Every relationship is different and brings with it different ramifications of what that death means to us in our life. And so we need to take the time and be patient and go through the process and seek the help to go through the process. So another aspect of this is, sometimes in spiritual circles we hear things like, well, the body is not real. Death is not real. We are spirit. We are, to focus on, we're encouraged to maybe focus on that aspect of our spiritual nature, but it should not be at the risk of not acknowledging the very real pain and suffering that we experience when someone dies. And so we have to balance that. Ultimately, there is, the truth is we say the truth is, who knows? I believe the truth is, but we think the truth is that we are spirit, we are oneness, and that we are eternal. And that can be comforting, but at the same time, like I said, there's this duality of our being, and we need tools to get through the life in form and the experiences that a death can bring about. Now, I've had, I wouldn't be able to really talk about this, I don't think, if I hadn't had some experience with loved ones dying, and there have been 4 very significant people in my life that have died. And each one was different. Each experience, the circumstances around each was very different. And I can't say one was harder or easier than another. They're just different. But the 2 deaths that were the greatest challenge was my brother and my ex-husband. And they died in their early 50s and left behind children with, that were now fatherless. And I think, you can think all as much as you want about, well, they're in a better place, they're not suffering anymore, there's no worries or cares, but there are these 4 children that were left. And that event of the early deaths of their fathers, it has impacted, it continues to impact their life in a very deep way. And we can't ignore that. I think we, know what I'm talking about. We need to acknowledge that this is a change that has come about that is not all that desirable. Now, certainly, things can come out of it. My niece, my brother died in a situation related to alcoholism and in an accident, and she has now, after first going through her own alcoholism and recovery, she is now in college and she's becoming a substance abuse counselor. And, that's powerful. Would that have happened if, these circumstances had not been as they were? Maybe, maybe not. But it's an example of using a deep loss and putting it to a good use, to be able to open and have compassion and learn how to help other people. So throughout everything that I looked at, and as I was just searching my own experiences, what keeps coming up is grief will help us become more compassionate people. It will help us open our hearts to the grief of other people. It will help us get very much in touch with this concept of impermanence. Nothing in our life is permanent. Everything changes. Everything will, in fact, pass away. And when it's right in our face, we are pretty much forced to look at it and to feel those feelings and to explore those thoughts that we have about what everything means. So much of the grief or that feeling of loss is about, I can't control things. Whoa, this is just right in my face that life is scary because we never know when something is going to happen to change everything. And so we have to come to a point of acceptance that I can't control things. And that's a good thing. That's a really good thing to learn. It brings us a lot more peace in our life when we can accept I'm not in charge, and things are going to happen, and the more I can go with the flow, the better. Someone described Vicki Harrison, I don't know who she is, but apparently she's got a lot of quotes, says, grief is like the ocean. It comes on waves, ebbing and flowing. Sometimes the water is calm, and sometimes it is overwhelming. All you can do is learn how to swim. How true. And another quote, Joan Halifax, she is a Buddhist nun, and she says, to deny grief is to rob ourselves of the heavy stones that will eventually be the ballast for the two great accumulations of wisdom and compassion. And I believe that is very, very, very true. So some of the things that happen when we have lost a loved one, there's sadness, of course. But there's also things that come up like regret and doubt. Did I do everything I could have while this person was alive to let them know that I love them? Was I kind to them when they were here? Did I appreciate them when they were here? And so that regret can really eat away at us if we let that go on too long. There may be doubt about, did the doctors do everything? If I hadn't been there when this happened, maybe it wouldn't have happened. So there can be lots of regrets. There can be anger. How could they leave me alone to raise these two girls? And then you feel guilty about that thought because, oh my gosh, this person was sick and died. They didn't want to die, but, it happened. And so there's, it goes back to, some guilt about feeling anger. Then there's fear. What am I going to do now? Who am I now? Who am I now that I am not in a relationship with that person? Whether it's a daughter, mother, son, mother, father kind of relationship, or a spouse, or a child. Who am I if I am not the role that that person had me in when they were living? I remember when Dave Bell's mother died. His father had already passed many years before, so he already gone past. He died many years before, and then his mother died, and Dave says, I'm an orphan now. And it, kind of like, yeah, and I had that same experience after my mother died. Like, all right, they're both gone. And I'm it. Sometimes it is said that it's not until your parents die that you become an adult. And I think there's some truth to that. And so, what else? What other things? The play that's going on here, this is kind of what triggered some of our conversations about this topic is the play is about, in part, about death and how the characters in the play each deal with the deaths that they've experienced or are going to experience. And they all show, very clearly show things like unhealthy things, like extreme anger, extreme bitterness, closing one off, closing your heart. Sometimes being in that situation of a loved one dying really opens your heart and it brings about a lot of vulnerability, but there's a temptation for some people to just close it up. Okay, I cannot feel any more pain, and so I'm not going to feel anything. I'm not going to have any joy in my life. I'm not going to see anything that reminds me of that loved one, because I'm just, it just hurts too bad. I'm going to close off. And of course, you can imagine what happens to a person's life and the people around them when that is the reaction that one has. And anytime, that type of extreme reaction lasts for a long period of time, it's very not useful at all, of course. So there's fear. And so I'm going to move on to talk about what helps us. What are the healthy things to do when we are grieving, and what are the not so healthy things to do? And so what we don't want to do is numb ourselves out. We don't want to resort to more drinking and overeating and sleeping all the time, you know, all the things that just withdraw and numb us. What we do want to do is reach out and ask for support. We want to contact friends. We want to try to be with people. You know, it's good if you have a job, you just go right back to work. And, you know, and try to keep a daily structure that is consistent, that sort of keeps your life going. It's recommended that, you know, we take especially good care of ourselves through our meditation and exercise and eating well and reading inspiring books. It's also healthy, or a healing action, to just surrender to the fact that you don't know what's going on in life, you know, that you don't know how to control things and how to make everything smooth and on an even keel. And so we just need to surrender to that. And we need to allow time and space, as Ron Best said in my opening there. Need time and space to let it all unfold. And often we observe like time markers of relating to that person's death. Like, this is the first New Year's, this is the first, you know, Christmas, this is the first birthday marking, you know, the annual anniversary of your death. Allow yourself to have fun and go out, and, you know, don't feel guilty that, you know, this person has died and here I am having fun. Maybe I shouldn't have fun. Maybe I should suffer a little bit more. And actually the opposite is true. There's a story in the Buddhist literature about how the Buddha answered a person's question about grieving and death. And there was a story about a mother whose baby had died, and she's carrying around this baby. It's been dead for days now, and there's, you know, no hope for it to be healed or cured. And she's crying incessantly, and the Buddha says, here's what, you know, she says, what can I do? And he says, here's what you can do. I want you to bring me back a handful of mustard seeds, and you must collect these from every household in the village. But you may only collect them from a household in the village that has not seen death. So, of course, she goes door to door and discovers everybody has experienced or seen death. And that helped her connect, you know, with, this is part of the human experience. It's a universal experience. I'm not alone. We really need to know we're not alone. And one of the things, you know, I started to get a story going in my life about I'm the one who everybody has died in my family, and I'm alone. And at the time I was meditating a lot and went to the Deep Spring Center and working with Arbor. And at one point, you know, I had a session with her, and she said, you know, it is not your loss, it is not a death of that one, it is loss, it is death. Don't personalize it. No, you know, and it's Buddha's story, you know, all of humanity experiences this. And the more we make it a story about, oh, poor me, I have lost this one and this one and this one, then the more contracted we become. And, you know, sort of feeling isolated and different. And, of course, it's far from the truth. So as you meditate on, rather than every little thought coming into my mind and thinking it's about me, you know, this happened to me for some reason. No, it just happens. It happens to us all. And so it allows an opening and a spaciousness to enter. And that's a very big step towards healing, and it certainly was in my case. So grief is a universal experience, death is a universal experience. And what we're looking for in terms of comfort and support is we're looking for someone to bear witness to our situation. You know, it's not to contradict the, oh, poor me, But, you know, we want to feel loved and supported. We want to be able to cry. We want to be able to let people know I'm going through this. And that love and support is also what can heal us. And so bearing witness, and this is kind of what our rituals are about when someone dies. We go to visitations, and of course the visitation isn't about the person that died, it's about the person, you know, the loved family members of the person who died. And that's very healing too, to see people come and show that they care about you, that they cared about your loved one. It's a time where, you know, we put all the pictures out and we tell stories and we celebrate. And you mentioned the word celebrate. We celebrate that person's life. And somehow it's like, I love this person, and now I can share with, you know, these 50 or 100 or more people how wonderful that love was and is. And it can be a celebration, and that can be a wonderful aspect of the healing process too. And so, seeing the time, I'm going to just end with a poem by Hafez. Seems really a couple here better. Okay, I'll just do the Hafez poem. This is a poem, My Eyes So Soft. He says, don't surrender your loneliness so quickly. Let it cut more deep. Let it ferment and season you, as few human or even divine ingredients can. Something missing in my heart tonight has made my eyes so soft, my voice so tender, my need of God absolute.